Good evening and welcome. This is vk3sl. We're here again. It's another lockdown, of course, and with all of its trappings, but in a way I'm sort of quite happy to be grounded. And we have a special evening tonight because shortly we'll be ushering in Mr. YJQ, and we'll be hearing about his exploits with the synthesizer. He's put out a CD, Steve has, and it's really an interesting project, and we look forward to hearing all about it. So we'll get that. We look forward to that very much in about 10-15 minutes' time. Well, what news other than the proverbial work boredom, which I won't mention. We have here we have a good news story, and I did tell the story this afternoon, but I'll just briefly recap. And that is that I got back my HMV 101 gramophone, which was my 10-year-old birthday present. I received this back in 1978, and it was a very special gift because it sort of set the scene for a lot of my hobbies. And for a long string of reasons which I won't go into, the machine has been out of my hands for a very long time. It was lent to someone and then lost, and lots of things happened, but it recently came back into my possession. And I was able to source a new spring for it, which means I can use it again. So that's quite exciting. So what we'll do is we'll have an acoustic patch to kick off the session today. I took a lucky dip out of the pile and found a recording of Billy Whitlock, a bell soloist. A very early recording, pre-First World War, goes way back. But yeah, we're going to have a bit of a sacrificial play here. And I've sharpened up the needle. And we'll be using this authentic approach to missions. We're doing the acoustic patch. So let's bring the microphone over here. We'll turn the thing on. We've cranked up the handle. I put in a new needle. And let's have a listen. vk3sl. And there we go. That was an acoustic patch to a 1927 HMV 101 portable gramophone, which is working for the first time in about 40-something years. It's been a long time between drinks with this machine. And as I mentioned this afternoon, I look at it and it's all its little imperfections and things, and I remember I used to gaze at this when I was a kid, and revisiting this particular device is a bit of a philosophical, I don't know, it's one of those things that you wonder what you've done with your life in the meantime. Anyhow, it's funny, isn't it, how things go in cycles. And it's great to have it all working again. So, nice little story there. Alrighty, now I should have also mentioned that the theme music today was a different version of Lucky Strike. Again, it featured Mr. Murray. We went to his CD launch the other day, and at the conservatorium he's now lecturing guitar there at the con, and he's just put out a CD called Frangipani, mostly Brazilian-inspired music, and he presented another version of Lucky Strike, which is the theme song for these missions. We've got a few different versions of Lucky Strike, and we sampled the brand new one, fresh off the rack. This CD came out just 2 days ago, so we'll have to play more from the CD. It's a wonderful selection, and it's Ken and Friends, a number of Brazilian musicians. Well, what we'll do now, before we get our Zoomophonics going, is we'll have a listen to some Stokowski. Yeah, this is an arrangement of the Fugue in C minor, one of the well-tempered clavier fugues by JSB, but in this instance we have the Bach Stokowski mega arrangement using a huge orchestra, and I always enjoy these larger-than-life performances, so I reckon we'll follow on with this. Now, just to note that we are testing, of course, these are modulated sound tests, tone tests, to validate volume and clarity. It has to be said, they are tests, nothing else. And we are presently on 1868 kilohertz FM and also 147.475 megahertz. So there we go. And also a streaming service as well. So if you do want to be entertained, go and listen on the YouTube stream. It's a dedicated channel to these missions, and it's set up under my call sign. So all you need to do is type in my call sign and you'll see the live feed. And if you want to know even more, there is a dedicated blog spot to these missions as well. Now, again, it's my call sign, vk3sl.blogspot.com. And all will be revealed. There's even an email address there. So if you really would like to get in touch, feel free to do so. Let's have a listen to the music of Bach. larger than life. We just heard the Fugue in C minor, Bach, Stokowski. And I have Mr. Steve on the screen now. I'll see if we can just switch you in there, Steve. It's welcome. And wondering if we're getting you coming through.
Good evening, Steve.
Hello.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, indeed, I can. That's very good. Excellent. Now, I've sent out a link to Frank. Now, I'm not sure about the hypertext links, whether it'll work in his instance. We'll just see, because I usually ask for people in a slightly different way. And the idea being that in this instance, we can resume after 40 minutes, because I think you have a 40-minute limit on Zoom. I think that's the situation.
Time's out.
Yeah. So
you get a warning, though. Your time limit will appear on the top of the screen. You get a warning.
Yes. So now that's the. I was reading up about how you can circumvent that, and I think that we have a way. So look, if Frank's not, if we're not getting Frank, what I can do is just grab an invite. In fact, I can copy the invite link now and send that through to him, just as a contingency. I think it could be a good idea. And here we go, new message. I've just got to send this through to Frank. Mr. Nolan, and here we go, missions link accomplished. And here we go. We'll give this a whirl. I think this is the same one. Fingers crossed. Here we go. That's for Frank, and hopefully we'll have a workable situation. Here we go. Yes, Frank is in the waiting room. Yay! So there we go. We'll just switch this through, and here we go. Frank, are you there? Greetings.
All good, yes.
Hello, Frank.
Good evening, Steve.
Excellent.
Well, it was only a few minutes ago I was hearing you both on ASV. I was hearing you both talk to Clint just a few minutes back. So
that was a good session. Another good session, wasn't it, Frank?
He does. He certainly does. He does a good job, and Steve is in the habit of giving very useful summaries of of what's gone on before.
Yeah.
Which I
Plus, I usually throw in a few of my own too, don't I?
Oh, you certainly do.
Yes.
While we're on that subject, could I just very quickly mention something? My tutor at U3A Science, I go to U3A Science, I was telling him about the app that you have, Steve, that gives account of the exoplanets that are being discovered. And he was asking me what it was and how he, get it.
Well, it's part of the Apple suite, I think. That's the trick. Clint,
Can you remember what it's called?
Yeah, for sure. It's called Exoplanet. Simple as that. And
Okay.
it's just something that's part of the Apple system, and that's why Clint has had struggled to get it, because I think his mobile phone's an Android.
Yes.
And
Well, I've got an Apple, and I know Norm, my tutor, has as well. So that's all to the good.
I've heard you speak about the Exoplanet. I'm going to write this down too, because it would be a fun app to check in with.
Steve, it's fascinating. If you're interested in that level of astronomy, you get an update whenever NASA have decided that they've got a confirmed exoplanet, and they do that by various means. They add it to the list, and so it's an accurate list, and you can go in and look at details of each one of these objects that have been discovered. It's got lots of statistics and interesting photographs and simulations. It's mind-boggling, really.
And see, would you believe that they've discovered 4,443 exoplanets?
It's extraordinary, isn't it? I hear this update each week, and I hear the dings go off. Now, I'm thrilled to say that Wayne is keen to join the conversation, so I can bring him in.
Excellent.
This is wonderful.
Oh,
thank you, Wayne.
better and better.
Well, we'll just send you off a Link-O-Matic, and then we can have a four-way turf talk.
This is going to only work for 45 minutes, isn't it, Steve?
Yeah, well, I was just saying to Steve before that that we'll have to, we might have to drop off.
You just re-log in, don't you? You just start again, Steve.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
So I'll just get that.
Can you start again with the same link, or have you got to set up a new invitation?
No, I was going by there's an approach where you can keep the current invitation, and I can drop off and then usher you back in, something like that.
Fine.
So we can try this out. I was reading about different approaches to doing this. So
we did it on U3A Jazz this afternoon, but Leighton 3CLJ did it by setting up 2 invitations.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. All right. Well,
Which is one way of doing it.
As far as I know, Steve, the same ID and the same passcode will get you back in and start again.
Yeah, that sounds
Right.
really good. That's fine. As long as we have a system, that's all that matters, really.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Here we go. I'm just sending this off now, Wayne, so you should be right with
Oh,
that.
excellent.
So there we go.
No, I don't know Wayne. Who's Wayne, Steve?
VCL. And he's really interested in astronomy as well. He's been very involved with the missions over the years. So and I think he listens into Clint here and there. So yeah.
Well, you're not getting the benefit of this at all, the listeners, but Steve can see I've got my camera running, and behind me is the musical instrument, and also next to that you can see my 10-inch telescope in the frame there, Steve.
Yes.
And before we get into the sort of missions proper again, could I make another quick thing to just reinforce my very, very big apology to you, Steve, for not having directly conveyed that I'd received your gift and how pleased I was. I had very high expectations of it, but they've been greatly exceeded, I might say.
Oh, you're kidding.
I think it's brilliant.
You flatter me too much. You flatter me too much.
Not at all. It's, I think it's amazing.
It's been the topic of the week. I've really been enjoying this. This is the, for those unacquainted, this Steve has put together this wonderful set using his home-built synthesizer. And, we're going to sort of sample some of these recordings and chat about it a bit and hear about the journey. I'm just fascinated. I mean, it's 1974. Wow.
Stars, yes.
Well,
what a monumental.
I should preface this session, Steve, with a comment. I suffered for my music, and now it's your turn.
Well, I did the ultimate test today. I gave it the family test today. I put it on the big speakers, and the kids were intrigued. I think the younger ones were a little bit. They said, "Oh, what's the scary music?" I think I had the
scary music.
Well, they found it. Well, I think they found. I was listening to the Great Nebula, and
yes, the Great Nebula is
and. It's fantastic. It reminds me of the Interstellar, and just this cosmic sort of array, and the sounds were just. And Henry is saying, "Oh my goodness, I could feel the vibrations through the room," and it was fantastic.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah,
so I've given many copies out to friends and family.
Yeah,
and I have solicited feedback from them, and what was their favourite track and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
and it has the reactions, by the way, have varied from we couldn't stand it and we couldn't play it all the way through, to one particular case where the parent, the father, quite liked it, and he fully understood it because he was a bit of a musician himself.
Yes.
But it was his young son, his prepubescent son, who would get up every morning, before breakfast, wake everybody up by playing the CD on the stereo at high volumes, almost daily.
Oh wow!
There's a musical genius in the making, I'd say there. my favourite track, for what it's worth, is the one towards the end where you use the lovely voice formant filters.
That's the title track.
Frank,
that's called Fantasy and Reality. That one.
I love it. I love that track.
Yes,
excellent.
It's really effective. You have to give us the rundown of how you used the Roland, didn't you? The JV 30 or something.
No, that was for the final thing.
Yes, for that.
If you want me to describe what things are going on there, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, look, it'd be great to hear. Now, I've just ushered Wayne into the fold, so a warm hello to you, Wayne. We even got your mic on, it looks like, or maybe we do.
Okay, I should have a mic there.
Yeah, there you go.
G'day, Wayne. We're hearing you loud and clear.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
Hello, Wayne. Stephen here.
Yeah.
Hey, Stephen, I haven't seen you before.
Yeah.
Who's Stephen? Put your hand up. Right, gotcha.
Steve's the one who built this incredible synthesizer that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with the rest of you. I can't stand the rest of you. It's got nothing to do with you at all.
No, we'll just tune out.
But I
did listen to some of your... Go on, Steve.
Yeah, I was going to say, this Mr. Moog has to stand aside when you see this extraordinary creation of Mr. YJQ's, this synthesizer. It has to be... Yeah. It's just something extraordinary. Yeah. But
it's totally analog, Wayne. totally analog, and so it sounds beautifully pure and no digital artifacts. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the analog. I heard some of it before, Steve, because Steve, this is very good. Frank's, Steve's. I keep changing my name. Frank and Steve, or sorry.
Yeah.
All he wants is another
the first
way.
part of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I heard the first part of it in the CD that Steve played earlier today in his missions.
Yeah.
And what's the name of the track you played, Steve?
What did I play?
Escher's Puzzle.
Yeah, I think it was.
Escher's
That
Puzzle.
was the
It
one.
was.
That's the Escher one with the endless loop of sound.
I'd love to
We couldn't
describe
work
that.
out whether
What's
it
happening
was
there-
puzzle or puddle.
Puzzle.
The puzzle. You know,
MC
Puzzle,
Escher.
right.
MC Escher was an artist, but also a graphic artist and a teacher.
I know
for,
him well.
Architecture and so forth, and he came up with all of these images that were impossible sort of perspectives. And one of them is that I used to have as a poster sitting on my wall for years as I was a student, was a building that looks like a monastery of some sort, and around the square roof of this building is a walkway, and there are these monks with hoods over their head.
yeah.
And some of them are walking up and the others are walking down in this endless loop. But the perspective is impossible.
Yeah.
They're either always walking uphill, always, no matter which direction they go, or they're always walking downhill. So,
Yes.
and I thought, well, how do you create a musical composition that sort of reflects that principle?
Yeah.
And there is
All we're missing is the Monty Python planks. They're hitting their heads on it.
That's right.
The first part of it's quite complex. It begins with what's called a shepherd tone. Does anyone know what a shepherd tone
I
is?
don't know.
No, enlighten
Used to
us,
attract
please.
sheep, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's where
They
you
can
attract
be-
sheep.
Well, shepherd tones can get really complex. In fact, that they could actually be like a full orchestra performing the pattern. But it does require a fair bit of precision and accuracy in the harmonic balance of the way you adjust it.
Yes.
I did it with just 2 sinusoids.
Right.
And you stepped them up in frequency, and you heard that going up the chromatic scale over one octave.
Yeah.
And as you step it up, you fade out the second harmonic, which is what the second tone was. You fade that out, and you bring in the other one, and it sounds as if it's constantly rising in pitch. And yet, all that's actually happening is just you're stepping over a 1 octave.
I've heard that on an iPhone app.
And I did it with the rising pattern, so you hear it and you think it's never stopping. It's just constantly rising and rising and rising forever. But then I did it reverse and had it descending.
Yes.
And then I had the 2 going at once, which is in stereo. Unfortunately, you don't hear that in mono.
No,
So that's an incredibly psychoacoustic effect, really, that I was playing with there.
Yeah.
It's a lovely illusion, isn't it?
It just blows your mind, really.
Yeah, it does.
And there was another effect that followed on from that, which was using pulse wave. But really, that was a trick in itself. It was a square wave at a fixed frequency, and I was changing the duty cycle of the square wave.
Okay.
But that creates a psychoacoustic effect where it sounds like it's either coming towards you or going away from you.
Yes.
But all it is just changing the duty cycle of a square wave from a narrow pulse to a wide pulse over.
Is that how you do it? Okay.
And I had a pair of those, one in each channel. So this is really a stereo effect, unfortunately. Lost a fair bit on the mono format.
I got a whole lot of that CD is at least twice as good in stereo, because you can do you get a lovely sense of movement with a lot of the tracks, which is terrific.
Yes. And I play a lot, Frank, with the concept of psychoacoustics.
I know.
And that's where I used a trick with the instrument that I've got. The actual synthesizer, when I first started building that in the 1970s, had a built-in reverb spring.
Oh, yeah.
And
right.
I developed, yes. and they're fantastic, the old reverb springs. They've got a particular character about them, Frank. I think they're still a valid thing to have,
I bought one, Steve. They have got a sound all their own, haven't they?
It's rattly and it's clangy and all sorts of stuff, but it's unique and it's got an organic character to it.
Yeah.
But because it's a mono instrument, I thought, well, this could still become stereo, because you can do a little trick with the delayed signal, because that's what's actually happening. As you come out of the reverb spring, it's a delayed signal compared to the original that you put into it.
Yeah.
So if you take that delayed signal, and this is getting technical now, and you put one phase of that delayed signal in, say, the left channel, and then you just simply flip it 180 degrees, using an inverter, and you put that inverted signal into the right channel, you've actually created a fake stereo.
Mm.
Yeah, well, it works beautifully.
Putting your hand up there, Wayne. What's that? You got a question?
No, I just saw Steve, and I wanted to say hello. His picture
Yes. I just switched the camera on, and that's fine. So we'll see what happens with the internet. If the internet gets a bit dicey, I'll switch it off. Yeah.
Sorry.
So do you follow that idea of the? Do you follow that idea of the fake
stereo? I do.
Yes.
It sounds unbelievably real. I hadn't thought that it was anything like that.
Mm.
Well, I use it a fair bit through this album. So that's another psychoacoustic effect. And when you sit down in a lounge room with a good stereo system, can't pin down where the sound's coming from. It actually has this ethereal effect where it sort of comes out round the back of your head or somewhere.
Yes, you
can't pinpoint it, and it's a great effect, I thought.
Yeah.
However,
I listened on headphones.
There is a serious problem with it.
Yes, what's that?
If you try to mix this down into mono, you can actually make it completely eliminate and disappear.
Yes, I was wondering about that.
Phasing each other out.
Yes, you can actually sort of anti-phase the whole thing. Yeah, I've listened to it in headphones and also on the big speaks, and it's a striking effect, and it's a really interesting one that you've.
Well, I think it makes this particular recording special in that sense, because there's not many people doing that sort of thing, but it does have that requirement that it really is a stereo sound.
Yeah. Now we'll have to play the whole album.
I've only heard it on headphones so far.
Yeah, we'll have to play the whole album on stereo emissions on 147, 475 for one channel and 160. We can do that. We actually did play quite a few stereo.
We've done that.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was good fun.
Can I ask a question just about the mechanics of your instrument?
Sure.
Which might be obvious if you can see it. Obviously, what you've got is the ability to connect anything to anything pretty much. And that comes through in the recording where you're connecting envelopes to filters and reverbs to whatever and so on.
Yes.
Do you do that by a patch bay with plugs, or have you got some sort of internal switching?
Yes, Frank, it's the original Robert Moog instrument, the Moog synthesizer. The Beatles bought one, and they used it on their Sgt. Pepper's album.
Yeah.
And Wendy Carlos or Walter Carlos.
Walter, as he once was, yes. That's right.
Did the Switched on Bach album, and
I love that. Yeah.
It's the traditional modular Moog, as it's called. So this is based on the modular Moog. So you have all individual electronic modules.
Yes,
and
I know.
They're not connected to anything when you start. It's a blank sheet, right? So then you create patch cords that go between inputs and outputs, and you configure the instrument how you wish.
Yes,
so you have to have some technical knowledge of, what an oscillator does, and then how you want to combine that with something else, and then post-process it with a filter, and then do an envelope amplitude change on it. And you can turn it into a musical instrument which is keyboard controlled, or you can just operate it as a standalone set of oscillators and filters, if you know what I mean.
I lack the technical knowledge to know exactly how you go about that, but I've had a very long-term interest in synthesis and music synthesizers, and I kind of have a pretty good feel for what you're connecting to what to get what sounds. I know when you're connecting an envelope to a filter to change its pitch or to change a sound level or whatever you're doing. And similarly with an LFO, I know whether you're connecting that to change pitch or timbre or volume. And I know I understand the result of that, and in a general sense how you do it. I just wasn't sure whether you did it the way that Moog did with patch plugs, or whether you had some sort of switching arrangement that lets you do it.
It's pretty thin on the ground at the moment. Steve can see it in the camera image.
Yes,
it's only got a handful of patch cords on it. They're all different colours and different lengths.
They're just the little mini patches, aren't they? The small leads, the small interface. They're not. Are they tip ring sleeve? They're not balanced.
Would you believe, Steve? It's banana plug and solid wire.
Is that what it is?
There you go.
And I made that decision when I was a student. When I was building this thing, I thought, let me do some experiments, and I found that there was no problems with extraneous interference coming in, because you're coming out of an operational amplifier, which is a very low impedance source, and what you're going into is a high impedance input, and so that pretty much ties up that link, and it's not susceptible to outside interference. In the proper Moog instrument and the studio and stage instrument, they're all coaxial cable, audio leads, with a jack plug on each end.
But I suppose on the stage there'd be other problems. But that's fascinating. So
this has been in certain stage environments as well, would you believe?
Right. Okay.
But it never played up.
Never
played up.
Oh, tremendous. Well done.
Wow.
Yay. Oh well.
I've owned a couple of analog synths. A couple of analog synths in my time, and yours exceeds what they could do in that the analog synths were never allowed to have FM capability because Yamaha had grabbed the patent from John Chowning for FM, so they couldn't implement FM. They had cross mod on AM, but they couldn't do proper FM. They can now, but they couldn't when I bought mine. And of course, you're running very successful FM on your analog synth.
Yes, the analog synthesizer as it's being used is what's called subtractive synthesis. So you take a sound that's rich in harmonic, either a pulse wave or a sawtooth wave, square wave. So that's got a harmonic structure. Obviously, the sine wave doesn't. It's pure.
Yep.
But the harmonic structure of a complex waveform, you then pass that through low pass or band pass filters, and you then subtract components away from it. So this is subtractive synthesis technique per se. Whereas remember that in the 1980s they came out with the Yamaha DX7 and instruments like that. They were they were FM technique, and they were additive synthesis. That was how they created the harmonic structures with that. But that required absolute precision of frequency locking all of those harmonics. You got the slightest error in your frequency shift, and it changed the sound entirely. So they were really internal computer and clock controlled, weren't they?
Yeah.
They were very difficult to program too, because it wasn't intuitive to know what effect you're going to get when you did such and such a thing.
Well, you have to understand the Fourier series there, don't you?
The Fourier transfer, that's right.
So
it was way beyond me.
So, Steve, with your compositions, how did you map them out? Was it sort of like, did you draw a concept map, or did you have some way of...
Yes, look, a lot of it doesn't exist now. I sketched a lot of it on blank pieces of paper or in a notebook. So a lot of it's not really something that I leave as a legacy. There are written pieces, though. Like, I didn't want this album to be just noise all the way through.
Look, you've got it. You've got a very poetic description of all of the. Every piece is beautifully described. I mean, there's a whole philosophical component to it.
Well, I also like melodies. I'm a fan of Bach, and I love a melodic tune. So I peppered bits of melodic pieces all the way through it, and I hope to think that what I've done there is original. And those pieces are written, so that's notes on a stave.
Yep,
great.
And I program that into a piece of software I've got, where I can then use a MIDI program to listen to it on a Roland instrument, to hear it come play back. And so I've got the score right. And then I actually play that by hand on the synthesizer, create the melody by hand.
Sure.
Or I use the sequencer, the 16-step sequencer, to actually create the melody. So it's all a lot of the melodics. Well, all the melodic stuff was written, but there's also a huge scope for improvisation. So I would experiment endlessly for hours and hours and hours during last year's lockdown.
Fantastic.
Coming up with an idea and experimenting with it and thinking, let's do 6 versions of that, and then you pick the best one. And so there's a lot of editing going on to compose the piece.
Yep.
And revisions of it, and,
Are you married, Steve?
Oh, Wayne, no.
Are you
I'm
married,
not, no,
Steve?
Single.
You're single. Okay, that explains it.
Yeah.
I was going to say, if you were married, you're not anymore.
Well, it's a labour of love. I know what it can be like to be absorbed in projects, and yes, it is a very.
Oh, there's a fever, isn't there, Steve?
There is a fever.
Once you get started,
I'll be out in a minute, honey. I'm just composing something. I'll be out in a minute.
Yeah, no,
I'll be out in it's just. I have to ask. The device behind you is obviously the piece of equipment in question, but next to that, to its right, is the white cylinder an electron microscope or some sort of atomic device?
Well,
is it nuclear?
I'm an amateur astronomer, and that's my 10-inch Newtonian telescope.
10-inch Newton, I thought it was. I just wasn't sure if it was a bomb or something. So
look at the posters too, Wayne. You've got a big galaxy thing there, and then that list above the telescope is the Messier 100.
Yeah. Well, I was a member of the ASV for a while, but I parted company with them because I'm not really that fond of them. But I do a lot of amateur astrophotography by myself.
Yeah, that's great.
In the company of like-minded people. So, I saw that and I thought, that's interesting. Yeah.
It's great.
Didn't want to take it off topic. I just wanted to establish that we had
I think
you should rejoin the ASV, Wayne, because we do quite a bit with radio astronomy now, and we need all the help we can get in that group.
Yeah. That was why I joined the ASV because of the radio astronomy.
I tried, but the problem is, if you walk up to Clint and say hello, you get a 45-minute lecture on something. He doesn't shut
like
up.
That.
Well, he's listening as we speak.
Talking.
So
yeah.
And
we say a warm cheerio to Clint.
So we should give him right of reply.
I got sick of sitting in that container, freezing cold, listening to Clint give me lectures on all this sort of stuff. And I'm sitting there going, are we doing anything?
Well,
but there was a hole to dig next week. I said, well, I'll go up and I'll help dig the hole.
Well, it's built now, Wayne. So. It's actually constructed. It's built.
Yeah.
But we've got issues with the receiver, and would you believe I've got the receiver here, and I'm doing some work on it.
I know that. Yeah, I sort of keep track of what's going on, but no, I won't be going back. But
yeah, fair enough.
Well, you can drop in as a visitor. We're welcome.
I'd like to go. I'd like to pop in as a visitor. I wouldn't have time to commit to anything, but I'd like to have a look. Always wanted to go to Heathcote and see the setup there.
Steve, it's ideal for you because if you pay, the visitor fee or the membership fee, you can go up there and camp with the family.
Yeah.
For one year's membership, you can stay there for 7 days at a time. And have access to all those facilities, which I helped build, which is just magnificent.
Yeah, okay.
It is well worth it just for that, and then to go out into the field and do the astronomy and all that sort of stuff. And I'd go up and pitch my tent and have a marvellous time out in the field, taking photos and all that sort of stuff. I just couldn't stand the politics of the place, so I
fair
gave
enough.
it a miss.
Okay, well, that's good to know about. Good to hear about Heathcote.
There's kids, all sorts of stuff.
Sounds most excellent. Well, I reckon we can have a. We've been talking about this wonderful CD, and I reckon we'll need to sample something. So now, one of the tracks you devoted to your piano teacher, I noticed there, or she gets a Guernsey.
Yeah.
So
would you like a bit of CW there?
I did. I could hear that.
That's AM, FM, TM. That's the name of the track. Which stands for amplitude modulation, frequency modulation, and time modulation.
Time modulation.
And, I just came up with that idea, right? And then I thought, okay, let's do some examples of that, but make them interesting. Tried to make it musical.
That's excellent.
You succeeded.
The first part, don't forget, everything you're hearing is sounds created by the electronics.
Yeah.
So wanted to simulate what it sounds like on shortwave radio with the static and the hum and the noise, and then a Morse code signal fading in and out. And I did that at the beginning.
Ethereal.
And that's the very primitive form of AM, isn't it?
Yeah. No, it's excellent. Well, what we can do, we can play that on the transition because we're going to zoom out. We'll need to zoom out and re-zoom in the next 10 minutes. So we can probably do that while we're playing it. So, it got two parts. It goes to the FM.
Three parts.
Oh, three parts. Sorry. Yes, that's right.
Yep, AM, FM,
and time
TM.
TM, time modulation. So, yeah.
With the FM, there's something interesting happening in there. I mean, there's quite a few examples of FM, and I really create some raucous noise. I'm a fan of noise. I think you can understand that, Steve.
Yeah.
The art of noise is pretty special.
Right. That's it.
And I found a way to make the most raucous noise where you take a pure signal and then you frequency modulate it, so that's like vibrato.
Then you
if you
do it again.
speed the vibrato up, that becomes a harsh sound.
Yeah.
So you take that harsh sound and then apply a vibrato to that.
Yes.
And so now you've got a couple of levels of FM, haven't you? Then you can speed that up, and that creates another harsh sound.
Yep.
So then you add vibrato to that. So now you're about 4 levels deep in frequency.
That's right.
You got up to 5 levels according to the notes.
That's a mega wobulation, isn't it?
I wound up the rates of frequency modulation to the point where it starts to sound like tape machine, like a tape recorder, playing a piece of music back when you're rewinding the tape back over the heads. Have you heard of that effect?
Yes.
I couldn't believe it. This instrument's sounds like a tape machine.
Yes.
How does it do that?
Yay. Well,
I reckon you can keep on. You keep on finding new sounds to make with a synth like that.
You do. You discover them when you play with it, really.
Yeah.
And you think, right, there's a great sound. I'll find a way to use that somewhere.
See, that's part of the invention. You don't have a memory that you can. You'd have to remember your settings, I guess, wouldn't you?
Well, it's in the wetware, isn't it, Frank?
True. There is that.
I haven't heard that term for a long time.
No.
Okay, so so do you think negative synthesis is more creatively amenable than positive synthesis?
Subtractive synthesis.
Yes, subtractive.
Look, I'm a bit biased, I think, Steve.
Yep.
I grew up with these sounds, and I got obsessed when I first started hearing things like Switched On Bach, and then later, one of my heroes is Keith Emerson of Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And he was really the reason why I built this instrument. I was just so obsessed with the incredible sound that he was creating, something that just was out of this world, off this planet. And I thought, I've got to understand how that works. You know, the curiosity in me took over, and I started building things when I was a teenager and never stopped, really. So that's where it comes from.
It's fantastic.
To me, it's more organic. You know, I think it's an organic sound, analog synthesis.
Sure.
Steve, have you heard of a Japanese synthesist called Iso Tomita?
Oh, of course. I've got several albums of his, Frank.
To me, he is the most sensitive, inventive synthesist that I know.
Yes.
Yeah.
The pictures at an exhibition is when it.
Oh yes, I played that on one of the missions a while ago. Tomita. He wrote a lot of orchestral stuff too.
We
things
love
like
him.
the whistler sound, you know,
superb,
and the humming Cossacks. Oh, that's incredible!
Wonderful,
incredible
stuff.
what he's done there.
Yeah.
And was he using a Moog or an EMC or something?
Yes.
I think he used a lot of other things as well, didn't he?
Well, a lot of Japanese-made stuff too, you know, because they were building things under license by then.
They were. They had, and they were putting out commercial synths.
The Japanese take a standard Moog and they put it in a fire and then they fold it 500 times. So what that does is it gives it a hard and definitive sound, very sharp.
Very sharp. That's right.
It's called you're good value, eh? You're good value.
It's called Bond synth, it's called.
That's it, yeah.
I love it. All right, folks. Well, we've got 7 minutes before we can, and we'll time the track on the transition. So give us a bit more.
Give us a music transition. We can transition while we're listening on radio.
Transmute. Well,
Transmute.
Yes, that's right. So, any other further comment on the on this particular track on the AM/FM TM? And
time modulation is playing with a delay line, that echo box, the smaller one on the top that you see there, Steve.
Yep.
And that's got multiple delay lines. Some of them are very short delays. Some are delays that can go up to 2 seconds. And so I'm frequency modulating a voltage-controlled oscillator that is changing the delay time of the delay module. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
I'm playing around with sine waves doing the frequency modulation of that oscillator, and then I'm switching between that to square waves, and then I'm trying sawtooth waves, and you'll hear that create distortions of the little repetitive arpeggio that's fed into the delay line. You hear that being chopped around and shifted around, and nothing's stable in time. That's for the experiment I was playing with.
Yeah, that's really great.
Steve, is the delay unit an analog unit, or is that digital?
There is bucket brigade devices in it. I suppose you call that semi-digital, don't you?
Semi-digital, yeah.
There is also, to get the 2 second delay, Frank, there is a couple of devices called the Princeton technology. They're these karaoke chips. In a single chip, you get very good quality audio with up to about a second delay coming out of it. And that's fully voltage controllable. So that's a brilliant little chip that came on the market. That's analog? Yeah. Well, it's kind of, they sample the waveform and then put it into a memory and plug it in and out of a memory. So it's a little bit of a digital aspect.
If they're sampling it, I guess it's not analog, is it? Anyway, who cares? It sounds terrific.
Oh, look, this is fascinating. I really enjoy the descriptions. It's just great to get some background into how it all comes together.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I tell you what, we've only got a few minutes, 5 minutes.
You'll only get halfway through that track, Steve.
Well, we'll give it a go.
Can we all listen on radio? So
I think so. Yeah, so if we're happy to listen in on the wireless, then you can hear what's going on. And I hope we don't get any of that phase cancellation, because I don't have to. I can play it in stereo.
I think this particular track doesn't use a lot of that reverb springs and that anti-phase stuff.
Okay, all right. In that case, we'll keep it.
It should be okay.
Keep a nice solid mono, and but I can easily switch into stereo if need be. Well, that being the case, we'll cut to the chase. We'll have a listen to AM FM TM, written by Mr. Stephen Bentley, who's our guest tonight. And we'll just cue this up. I've got to find track number 5.
Do we sign out here, Steve?
I'll end the call and then invite you all back in. So I'll just do I do that? Maybe we just maybe I do need to invite you back in. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Let's drop out, and then I will the call should
in the same way.
Yeah,
and
I think see what happens.
Yeah, I think it just come in the same way, because I just have to restart it. I think that's the way.
And if it doesn't work,
I'll just start again.
You'll know pretty soon it hasn't worked.
It's easy.
And we can then.
Yeah, absolutely. So tune in your wirelesses, folks. We are about to kick off. I just have to get the right CD player.
I'm on.
And this is vk3sl testing.